welcome to this video. So in the last video that I just recorded, I was talking about the handful of leaves, the Buddha's teachings that, we're not talking about supernatural stuff. He's talking about supranatural stuff. And the supernatural stuff is just being here right now in this present moment. And as we rest more and more deeply into that space, at a certain point, the heart knot opens. They talk about the great heart knot in yoga. This is able to open and release through, generally, probably through a process of self-awareness, growing self-awareness. And in fact, as we get more and more deeply connected in present states of awareness, at a certain point one realizes that there is a blockage at the heart chakra, and then when we investigate into that, or when we're with that just as it is, and often this will come deeply into the conversation on karma as well, often something that we're running away from is that very feeling right there where that is closed off. Because if we go deeper into those cycles, what are we all genuinely actually seeking and looking for in our lives? To be loved, to feel loved, to love, and a lot of us, I can speak for myself, go around a lot of the time, and there's a blockage energetically, and that's something that we become aware of when we get more and more present. And of course, when this opens, then we start to feel that deeper connection with a certain peace and harmony within ourselves, and also that connection with everything that is all around and about us. So what is it that keeps us on this wheel of mind, of mentality? Because on one hand it seems really simple. We're just we're just going to stay as present as possible, and and that's essentially a large part of the practice. But also the other element is the old Gnostic maxim, know thyself. And if we don't know ourselves, then this is the problem. We'll always get caught back on that loop of mind. The more that we know ourselves, the more that we can catch those movements of mind and go, okay, here we go again. And then we've got a chance to step off the wheel in those moments. The more and more that we're able to catch ourselves and come off, and the more and more we know what our natural propensities are towards certain topics and activities of mind, then the more and more we're able to step off. So what is karma? For me, I would describe karma as just everything that does draw us back into mental streams. Now, obviously that can be everything from things that we've experienced from the moment of conception. I'm not going to go into potential of past lives or not. It's not something I have any concrete knowledge about. But I would say everything from the moment of conception, for sure, our experiences. Once we start to have experiences, all these experiences accumulate and they become a part of who we are, the conditions that are around us, the culture. Yes, if we want to talk about past lives, maybe genetically as well, there are certain structures that are built into our personality that have been developed over generational periods. And I would go as far to say that, when globally the Buddha or in these spiritual texts we talk about past lives, I would say that personally I've had thousands of past lives. Everything that I've experienced in the past is almost like a past life. All my memories, all my experiences of the past. And a small example is I'm walking through the forest, I'm breathing, I'm reasonably present, I'm surrounded by the beauty of the forest, the leaves, the sounds, the odd bird lifting off from a branch, wonderful. And then all of a sudden, boom, I get this thing goes through my head, and that's that there's a neighbour who was physically violent towards me at one point, and one time I met him on that track. And the reality is that the neighbour long since moved away. I haven't seen him. I think I only once saw him on that path, and that was before he was violent towards me. But I'm walking along there on the path, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, what if he comes now? What if we meet on this path again? And right now, right then in that moment, even right now, a certain amount of panic can sort of start to come up. There's a definite contraction of my being, like the muscles will start to contract. I'm getting ready for fight or flight processes. I'm certainly vibrating at a grosser vibration, or a different vibration. Let's not say grosser, just not in the same vibration as I was a few moments ago when I was with the forest and the trees and everything was beautiful. And then I can take that wherever I want. I can visualize him arriving right in front of me. We can go through big kung fu battles. I can run this way. I can pummel him into the ground. I could, infinite possibilities of what I can do with that situation. But as a practitioner, the practice is to notice when the mind's shifted out of that space of balance and moved into that space of mentation, thinking about all that stuff. And at that moment, to be able to at least say, okay, right, notice the quality of that vibrational change in my body, notice the quality of physical change in the body, maybe a certain amount of tension, a certain amount of stress. And one thing that's key in this point is not to say, oh, I want to be back feeling beautiful with the trees, but more it's like to really accept what's there in that moment and say, it's like this now. And to really accept and really embody that moment, that space that we experience. And then also through that, experiencing it really with presence and awareness, that also takes a certain amount of power out of it. And it also starts to give us a certain amount of distance from the material. And that kind of disempowers it. And also, the more that we're able to do this sort of practice, then the more that we're able to catch it earlier in the process, the more that we're able to step outside of it, and the more that we will naturally actually come back into more of the states that we were in previous just to what we left it. Now, obviously, what's also happening is that we're talking about many, many compound mental states that happen all the time. It's not that often that we're in that space where we're walking in the forest and everything is tickety-boo, as one of my favourite aunties would have said. So essentially, everything that can draw us back into those mental cycles is karma. And that's accumulated from all the experiences that we've ever had in our life. And also, they also lead to projections of the future. So, if I have fears to not have enough money because of something I've experienced in the past, then I'll also get thrown into projections of what I can do to secure my financial future, for example. So, so the possibilities are really infinite there, and And then the next layer situation is the subtleties, because your ego mind wants to be center stage. It's habituated to that, and that's what it knows, and that's what it wants. And the other side of that is, I think it was just earlier in this, I was talking about the great heart not opening. And even before the great heart not opening, I mean, the reality is that we're told in spiritual traditions is like, we need to come into the present moment, which is beautiful, and we do. But the present moment, before that great heart not opening, can feel a little bit sterile, can feel a little bit like, like you're knocking around in a bit of a cell, and maybe you're a little bit closer to all that stuff that we aren't comfortable about feeling within ourselves. So you have to face that, and you have to be with that, and one has to breathe through those experiences, and that's what brings us to the cusp of being able to open up that great heart knot, and then that sense of connection and belonging and affinity with everything around us opens up. And that's when there's a certain tendency to start to fall in love with the path, if you like, and to have this sense of being drawn, wanting to be drawn back into that flow of life, and a little bit less caught up in the flow of mind. Because when we're not in that space, and when we are feeling maybe some of the tensions and the fact that the heart knot is closed, and we don't have that connection with other things, we can actually feel quite isolated and disconnected in that present moment as well. There is always the opportunity to come into the present moment, and particularly with nature is so powerful for this, and just we connect, we see the beauty around us, we hear the sound of a bird, whatever it is, the rustle of a leaf, and but the reason why we keep escaping into mental cycles is because of that sense of disconnection. When we are just come back to ourselves for a moment, it's like everything's busy, and then suddenly everyone goes, you're left in a room on your own, and after a moment it's like, what am I going to do to fill the space in? Because what space we fill in? We're filling in the space that we don't have to feel and deal with actually what's going on deep inside. And the way that we most habitually fill that space is with thoughts. I mean, the thought can also be reach out for the box of chocolates, go do this, go do that, tack. We've got plenty of crutches to walk on, to walk with, to get us through the day, and then the next layer of this is the subtlety of egoic mind streams. So if we're able to drop into the present, if we're able to notice that we're caught up in a mental stream, already this is great practice. But then the moment that we're able to sort of step outside of and notice, then the ego will come in subtler still and say, I was caught up in that mind stream. And already we're on the edge of a new chain of egoic mental thoughts. Just need to be able to, how long was it since, this is it, now I'm doing what I was meant to be. shouldn't be thinking what I'm thinking now. I must let go of that as well. The ego has this capacity to morph itself and take ownership over almost every single experience that we can have. And that's where it's complex, but that's where we need to understand the age-old maxim of know thyself. And the more and more that we go through these cycles, and really often, catching ourselves and coming into a really clear net experience of this present moment, they tend to be very momentary because of this, because the ego whisks us off. And every so often that moment will open up into a good moment, and then at a certain point you realize that you're caught back in the other stuff. And the theory is that there's the potential for this to stabilize more and more as time goes by, as we become more and more habituated to practice, and that's what we are doing. We're practicing all the time, and the more and more deeply through those practices we understand the concept of our own makeup, our own minds, our own ways of moving in and out of all these different spaces and states. And essentially, for me, that is karma. One little thing to add on to that is that these things take time to work through the system. I think in Powers of Nine I say that it's like you eat a load of junk food or something, and okay, you can be aware of that, but once you've eaten it, it's still got to go through your system. Your body's going to absorb all the too many sugars and all this. You need to evacuate that. Your body needs to process and evacuate that, and you need to eat more balanced foods for a certain period of time before you get the benefits of those balanced foods, and without the effect of the junk food that you ate, for example. And so in some way karma's also like that. It's not that the other example that's often given is the fire. It's like you throw a load of wood on the fire. If we let ourselves roll in, me think about too much about football scores and football teams and which players we should buy next and this and that, or whatever it is that I allow myself when I go on the screen, we start to go down wormholes into this subject, and we get tag. They all have a certain amount of momentum, and we have to let them go bit by bit if we really want if we want those fires to burn out. Once the fuel is on the fire, it takes time to burn out. So one can't just say, okay, well now I'm aware of that, that walk in the forest, okay, I'm aware of that, I'm done with it. No, you're not done with it. That feeling that came up for me is still going to come back up at another moment, in another forest, in another path, in another place where I met my neighbour at that time or whatever. And maybe even lying in bed for some reason, a thought comes, and then boom, I can be there living that story again. So it takes time. It takes time for the fuel to burn down. And in some way that brings me neatly round to the idea of sacrifice and what is true sacrifice. So let's talk about that in another video maybe, and thanks for watching this one.